Evening and welcome to the West Orange Board of Education Public Board Meeting on Monday, August 26th, 2024. It's the end of summer, so we're a little off schedule today. It's kind of laid back, but it's okay. I would like to thank all of you here in person and those watching from home for joining us tonight. I'd like to welcome my fellow board members as well as Mr. Moore and Ms. Flowers. Ms. Flowers, would you please take the roll call?
Good evening. Roll call, please. Dr. Bryant,
Here.
Mr. Ifker.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson,
Here.
Vice President Vera,
Here.
President Rock.
Here.
Notice of meeting. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests are discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, a written notice was sent from the Office of the Secretary of the Board on May 9th, 2024. That said notice was sent by regular mail to the West Orange Township Clerk and the editors of the West Orange Chronicle and by email to the Star Ledger. That said notice was posted in the lobby of the Administration Building of the Board of Education and posted on the district website. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcasted on local TV and the district's website at a future date. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. For the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Flowers. In consideration of the closed and public meeting minutes of July 22nd, 2024, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ifker. Any comments? Hearing no comments, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Ifker.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Vera,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Moore, it is now time for your report. Please share your superintendent's report with us.
Thank you, President Rock. Tonight, I can report that next Wednesday, September 4th, our doors open for our students, new and old, and our administration and staff who work diligently to support a successful 24-25 school year. We look forward to welcoming everyone, and I'd like to also give a special shout out to our two new board liaisons from the high school. Hi, Abby Rothstein and Nina Davis, and I welcome them. And Abby's last name might sound familiar. I don't want to take away your shine, but shout out to your dad. So as we move on this evening, I am honored to have with us today Miss Kalisha Darlene, our preschool program director in the district. She's here tonight to provide us with a little update about our universal pre-K program. I want to thank Miss Darlene as she has really expanded our program and has done a terrific job. I can tell you that I'm not out there with her all the time. She's out there doing her thing and really making it giving us a lot of pride and making our mini Mountaineer program just grow. Kalisha, oh, sure. Okay. So board members, can you please join the audience? Yeah, they're coming. Okay. And Kalisha, you come on up.
Okay. Hello, good evening. My name is Kalisha Dorleen. I'm the director of the Early Childhood Program, and I wanted to provide you just a short update on our enrollment and what we've had the opportunity to accomplish from last school year into this school year. So for the 24-25 school year, we will have a maximum of 480 preschool students across our district, private provider, and Head Start locations. So that includes also 35 inclusion spaces that are reserved for students that are transitioning into inclusion. So to break down the 480, we have 119 pre-K 4-year-olds that are returning that participated last school year. We have 294 students that we registered for this school year. And then there are 35 students that are still waiting to complete registration that will begin as soon as they have their appointment with the registration office. So we're in great standing, and that leaves us with only 19 spaces to fill, and those families are being contacted off the wait list this week. So to go into more detail, we have 2 district locations that we had the previous year. We have our Early Childhood Learning Center facility, which has 4 classrooms and can serve a maximum of 60 students. And we currently have 51 enrolled and 8 reserved inclusion spaces. For Betty Madalena, we have 1 general education classroom there for 15 students, and we have 9 students currently enrolled with 5 inclusion spaces. Our Head Start locations include Montclair Child Development Center, which has 3 classrooms in Montclair and 1 classroom in Orange. In Montclair, we have 32 students out of 45 with 6 inclusion spaces. And then for the Orange location, we have 12 students out of the 15. For our providers that are continuing partnership with us, we have West Orange Community House, which has been with us since the beginning, and they have 3 classrooms. They have 44 out of the 45 slots filled and 1 family that's waiting to complete registration. Valley Settlement House has a total of 30 spaces and 25 out of 30 filled with 5 families waiting to complete registration. And Primrose with 1 classroom, 15 students, and all 15 students are registered. So for our expanding locations, these are locations that joined us in our 2nd year and decided to continue and grow the program within their individual facilities. And everyone I can say is opening on time this year. So we are very excited about that. Peanut Shell originally had 3 classrooms and they added 2 additional classrooms. So they will be serving 75 students. We have 68 students that are registered and actually 12 inclusion spaces that are in that facility. For Temple Benai Abraham, they will be serving an additional 30 students, which places them at 60 for the 24-25 school year. And they have 54 spaces filled with 5 families waiting to complete registration. Now, for our new partners, these are all locations that we had the opportunity to explore, meet with them throughout the course of the year and ensure that they were prepared to receive their students for the new academic year. We have Tutor Time of West Orange, which will have 30 students, and they have 29 out of 30 registered with 1 family waiting to complete registration. Little Explorers Learning Academy, they have, well, all of our new locations all have 2 classrooms, so that's great as well. But they have 25 with 2 families waiting to complete registration. First Mountain Preschool has 30 spaces with 4 families waiting to complete registration. And our last location is Roseland Child Development Center with 26 families out of 30 that are registered and 4 families waiting to complete registration. And just as a positive note, last week we did host a high school curriculum training for all of our new staff members. So we had over 25 participants, which included teachers, teacher assistants, as well as directors. And everyone had a fun time learning the information in the 5 pillars to construct their lessons, and they're ready to receive our students for this academic year. So thank you.
Thank you, Kalisha. Let me just get my notes. Didn't realize that was sitting there. Okay. And now can we please turn our attention to Miss Ebony Mendez, our Assistant Superintendent, and Miss Michelle Martino, who will be presenting the district's 23-24 results of the NJGPA Access Training. Ebony, sorry. Michelle is diligently working behind the scenes, by the way. Say hi to the people, Michelle.
Yes, so, good evening. Good evening to our board and to our community. Yes, Michelle Martino is our Director of Assessment, Accountability, and Intervention. And she is, of course, the one who's really putting these data together, right, and pulling all of our reports and helping us assemble how we're going to present to the board. So this evening, we're going to review our NJGPA results and our Access for ELS. These are two different assessments. They are not related. The reason we're presenting them together is because they arrived in district at the same time, and we have 60 days within which to present. And so then we combine these each year. So we'll begin with the NJGPA, specifically for the class of 24-25 high school graduation assessment requirement. The state of New Jersey is saying that students have to pass the NJGPA in order to graduate. This is new, and it began last year with the class of 2024. So that's the first class that was required to meet this requirement, and therefore we wouldn't have historical data prior to that. We're beginning with last year, and then next year we'll be able to report out on 2025. So what is the requirement? Students must take the NJGPA in their 11th grade year in March. Those that demonstrate proficiency have met the assessment portion of the requirement. Those that do not have the option of meeting the requirement with a second pathway, and that is a menu of alternate competency tests like the SAT or the PSAT. And then the third pathway would be portfolio appeals. And so for this first pathway, these are the criteria in which the students must meet the requirement. They have to obtain a 725 in ELA scale score, and in math, they must meet the requirement in both content areas in order to meet the requirement via the first pathway. This is where the content is that is assessed in ELA grade 10, the standards, and math, it's algebra 1 and geometry standards. Students who do not pass the NJGPA in spring and March of their 11th grade year then would take it again in the fall in their senior year. And then students who have an IEP and are exempt from taking the state assessment are also waived from that requirement. The second pathway offers a menu of substitute competency tests, and these are those that the state of New Jersey says are acceptable for the students, or that they can demonstrate proficiency in a different way. So then you'll see here the list of ELA assessments, and you'll see the list of math assessments that students may take. The third pathway for this new requirement is the portfolio appeal. And so then any grade 12 student in the class of 2025 who has not met the first or the second pathway can take the portfolio appeal. And this is what is required. They still have to demonstrate proficiency. So although they're not demonstrating it on a test, sitting for that one test on one day, they still have to demonstrate proficiency, and they have to do so for ELA with 2 grade level reading passages and a writing that includes at least 2 of the 3 types required. Same as NJSLA, they just get to demonstrate it in a different way, right? Versus sitting in a testing setting. And for math, they have to express mathematical reasoning and modeling, and they also have to do the constructed responses. They do those. These are secure state assessments just as well. They take those assessments, and then we submit them to the state, and we would say the students have met those requirements through the appeals process, through the portfolio process. So then for our current class of 2025, which means the students will be graduating in upcoming June, they already took the NJGPA in the spring that just passed. And this is the report that I'm sharing. Those students who are going to graduate in 2025 and just took the NJGPA in the spring. In ELA, 88.5% of our students passed the NJGPA with the first sitting of that assessment in March. And in math, 55.3 passed in that first sitting. You'll see the state scores here for ELA 81.6 and 54.7 respectively. We are required to report out district in comparison to state, and that's why we're showing that here. In pink, is it pink up here, or in the lighter color, then those are the students who did not meet with that spring assessment. We have 11.5% who did not meet with ELA, and we have 44.7 who did not meet with that assessment in the spring. When we look back over the course of 3 years, you'll see that the first number here is the students who sat down for the NJGPA. This was a sample test, right? They were trying to get it out to see how would students do before they made it a requirement. And so then we were at about 42.6% and 45.4% ELA math respectively. Then they changed the cut scores in New Jersey and they recalibrated to say, now we're going to make it count. So that's what we see in 2023. So when it counted, then we were scoring at 84.6 graduation ready, meaning they passed that NJSLA in the spring, in ELA and 49.1% in math. That was in 2023, the first time that it counted last year. And this year we increased to 88.5% in ELA, and we went up to 55.3% in math. So in ELA over that 1 year, we have a 4.6% increase, and in math, we have a 12.6% increase. So we're moving in a growing direction. When we look at these data as it relates to our race or ethnicity, we are also required to report out here. We see that of our ELA students, which were 522, we had 88.5 as a district coming from the 84.6, but then you'll see how we are performing in terms of ethnicity and race. So when we think about where our growth is largest, our Black African-American students, we see an increase of 8.1% from 1 year to the next, our Hispanic 6.1%, and Asian 5.6%. When we think about how many students are we talking about overall at the high school, we have 2,175 students overall, but only 522 were in 11th grade. When we think about so we see some growth with our African-American students. We're at 89% proficiency for those students who tested. What percentage of that is our students represented in the district? At the high school, we have about 37% of our students are African-American. When we're thinking about our Hispanic students, 37% are Hispanic. So there's an even percentage there. Asian is 4%, white is 16%, multiracial is 6%. So that kind of just gives us an idea of our demographic at the high school. When we look at math, we see our percentage of proficiency on the NJGPA in the spring of 24. And again, when we're thinking about our most notable growth, as a district, we grew 12.6%. Our Hispanics population grew 43.9%. That's a really big number. And when we're thinking about the fact that you'll see in a few minutes that we have 108% growth in our Ls, that's a very good growth number, right? We're really making some great gains with our students. Asian 9.6% growth and white 11.8%. When we look at our demographic by economically disadvantaged, we see that for our ELA, 86.7% of our economically disadvantaged students demonstrated proficiency in that first sitting. This is, again, very strong for our district. These are great gains with our subgroups. In math, 44.9. So in ELA, we had an 8.4% increase from 1 year to the next, and the same in math, 8.5%. So what are our next steps? Our school families are informed in July. As soon as we receive our ISRs, our individual student reports, then a letter goes home so that the parents know this is how your student performed on the spring NJGPA. These are the options if they've passed or if they're going with a second pathway or that third pathway. In August, our school counselors are reviewing to make sure that we're registering our students for the NJGPA in the fall. And also identifying those students who already passed in the second pathway, the PSAT, ACT, and SAT. In September, our teachers begin to review the data. The supervisors go over the data and the evidence statements with the teachers, and then in their classrooms, they review those specific areas that they need to, so that the students can really just be prepared for that fall sitting. Just of note that assessment is administered in October. So we're here in school for about 2 weeks before the new assessment is administered. So it's really a 2-week window in the classroom. October 7th through 11th is the window for the fall, and then in January 2025, the portfolio process begins. And just for context, how many students did not meet back last year? 2 students did not meet the criteria, and so then they are continuing on with our students. So we will work with those 2 students, but those are the number of students that did not meet the criteria. This is just a review, NJGPA, either they're graduation ready based on the NJGPA or not, and then they can retake or take a menu of the competency tests or the portfolio appeals. It's important to note that we still have students who choose to opt out, right? And so then there may be students who do not choose to want to demonstrate by a test, right? And there's a philosophy there that's held. And that brings me to the access for Ls for our English language learners, or now they're being referred to as our multilingual learners. The spring 2024, this is the assessment that is administered to our multilingual learners to see how they are gaining English language proficiency. Here we'll just see the different levels of proficiency and their definitions. One being a student who's entering, they've been in the country maybe for 1 year and they're at a novice place of learning English. And then that 6 is the level in which that is native language proficiency, so that they would have English as native language proficiency. Here we're required to report out on a district frequency. So what you will see in the first column is the levels of proficiency, 1 being entering and 6 reaching. 4 is where they exit. So if we look at that level 4, that's where a student is exiting ESL services and they're coming into the mainstream. And then the top row just gives us the domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And that just lets us know where they are in terms of proficiency. So this isn't a score for English proficiency. This is a score for us to know how to place them, right, based on that level. We see this for our grades 6 through 12. And here was what I referenced before, our end of year enrollment over the past 3 years. Wow. In 2021, we had 231 multilingual learners, and last year we ended with 482. Significant difference, 108.7% over the past 3 years. And in our kindergarten and in our high school, that's where those clusters are. That's where we see the greatest number of students coming into the district. Of importance to us, to the board, and to the budget is, well, how many students are transferring in after September? And so then this is also a significant number. In 2021, we had 60 students transfer in after September, after school started. And in 2024, we had 228. So what does this mean? This means us coming for another staff position, that 6th position in the budget, increasing our sections, increasing our resources out of our control, right? We are not allowed to budget for those sections if the student enrollment is not there. So here we just see the impact of those 228. It's also important to know that if a student enters the country in year 1, they are exempt of ELA for ELA. So that's why we might have 100, or not 100, 10, sorry. I don't know where I got 100 from. 10 students less that are taking the ELA assessment than the math assessment. Also speaks to math when we see that lower percentage of 44. If we have 228 students, they could be in the country for 1 year and they're still required to take math. Yeah. Okay, that's very important. So when we're looking at that percentage proficiency in math, it's not just that our students are not faring well in math, it's that we might have 228 that just entered the country, don't speak English yet, and they're required to take that assessment, and they are in that number. I think that's a very important fact to know. Here are our programmatic implementations and professional development, from sheltered instruction to professional development. We have after-school tutorial programs. On this board agenda alone, you're going to see 3 items to support our multilingual learners. Rosetta Stone, sheltered English, and then really working with our content area, general education teachers to really support our students throughout the curriculum and in their classwork. And that's it. This is our NJGPA and Access for ELS presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it. And as you can see, what's great about our district and the hard work we put into making sure that we're inclusive and there's equity among learning. Yes, our district's very diverse in many different areas, and as you can see, including multilingual. So I appreciate you making reference to it, because we do work towards making sure all our families feel a part of this, part of our educational system, and we have safe spaces for all of them to learn. So I appreciate that. Of course, we have work to do, and we will do that work, and we'll continue to work hard. But both Ebony and Michelle, along with our other curriculum people, work at it all the time. It's obsessive with us. We really have put in a strong effort when it comes to our curriculum. You know, we've introduced new curriculum thanks to this board and the members of this board that helped bring that in. I want to thank you for that. But I do appreciate Ebony and Michelle's work, along with Kalisha's work with preschool, and I think that's our future. Kalisha, thank you so much. I know that our students getting preschool will help us and will help increase all kinds of scores and academic victories. So we appreciate the work you're putting in as well. To the board, that'll conclude my report for this evening, and I invite you to come back up to the dais where we can resume the meeting.
All right, thank you for that report, Mr. Moore, and thank you both for those presentations. Before we move on to, does the board have any questions for either of the 2 presentations we had today? You go first.
Thank you, President Rock. So I just want to, Superintendent Moore, if I may, commend the Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Mendez, on 2 fronts. On the early childhood front, you know, we worked very hard as a board with the administration through 3 superintendents to get early childhood to where it is now in our community. And I know your tireless efforts have gone a very long way to that. And so to see those successes, to see those gains, to see our former board member, Mr. Rothstein, in the audience, he knows those struggles. And so I just really want to thank you for your efforts, your team's efforts, our director's efforts to really bring us to a point in this community where we can celebrate early childhood as now a staple, as a part of our district and a part of our community. It's as a parent of 2 small children who are now in elementary school and having paid for early childhood. Yeah, I can say as a citizen, I'm grateful that we have this opportunity for families in our community. So Mr. Mendez, I just want to compliment you and commend you on that excellent work. Secondarily, on the NJGPA assessment data. I think, again, you and your team responded really well in terms of the new administration, and to see those gains year over year, I think is impressive. Oftentimes, it's the kind of information that parents may be unaware of, or the community may be unaware of. But again, to see those gains, particularly in ELA, that we're, in both ELA and math, surpassing the state on both fronts. To see us almost at 90% on ELA, I think is really demonstrative of the changes put in from a curriculum and instruction standpoint, I hope. Obviously, the math scores are not in that same 80% range, but to see the gains there gives me the indication, both as a parent and as a board member, that we're heading in the right direction. I will suffix your comment about the subsets, particularly around economically disadvantaged students, of which I think the data says about 39% in our community. So to see our economically disadvantaged students performing near at those students who are not economically disadvantaged, to see the numbers broken down by demographics, and to see gains in every demographic subcategory, I think also needs to be highlighted. So again, thank you to you and to Ms. Martino and the entire curriculum and instruction team, and really all the way down, right, to the classroom, because that's where the work happens. So it's just good to sit in the audience as a board member and to see a report where there are gains year over year. Again, nothing is ever, ideal or optimal, but to say that we're moving in the right direction, I think is really important. So thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Moore, as well.
Mr. Ipker.
Am I on? Okay, hi. So I just wanted to ask you about something similar about the subsets. So 84% is a very good number for English language arts. 49% is, we have work to do in math. I was surprised to hear that one of the reasons that the math is so low is because, so many of our students are recent immigrants, or English is not their first language. I would have thought that would have impacted ELA more, until I came to learn recently that it's not just a language thing. It's that they have not been exposed to the level of math that we're doing here, correct?
It's a contributing factor, and the math that is learned in a different country, depending on what that country in, could vary. Our standards are different.
Okay.
And so then the language, however, does impede access to the content.
So if if this large percentage of students who come here really, ill-equipped, they don't know the language, they don't have the math background, if we can get all of those kids were up to the standard of the community, what do you think that 49% would look like?
I would not be able to presume to know that number. I would be able to say, though, that when we're looking at how long it takes our students to gain English language proficiency, we are on track, and at most times ahead of that 4 to 5 year curve. So our students are demonstrating proficiency of English sooner than what the state gives us, generally 4 to 5 years. It just depends how long the students are with us. If they're entering into school for the first time in high school, we will work with our students, and we will, help them obtain language proficiency with great fervency, right, and dedication and commitment. Research wise, it does take 4 to 5 years to learn a second language. It's not something that you can, and especially when we're thinking about academic language and high school academic language.
I just think that 49% is deceptively depressing. It's not as bad as it seems, because once these kids get caught up and learn the language and get in the system, I think the numbers are higher than that generally, and they're going to keep going higher.
So what we could do is we could disaggregate that. And that's a data point that I could give the board. I could pull out how many are MLs and how many are exempt due to IEP, because we have, I think, 87 students who are exempt and they had to sit for the first time because it's a requirement. So in order to exempt them, the state says they must sit at least once.
That's
So those numbers are there. And so I don't want to, I want to be careful not to just point at, some of our subgroup students. I just want to kind of review the state requirements and how that's implemented. And so then all of our students are represented in that number, some of which will be exempt, some of which are in our 18 to 21 program, some of who are MLs and in the country for less than a year. And so then, yes, we can disaggregate that data and look at that while just being mindful of all of our students and their abilities and where they are in the continuum.
great. Thank you.
Dr. Bryant?
I just wanted to commend you because far too often, sort of statewide, nationwide, we see data that shows our Latinx students and our Black students underperforming their peers in massive numbers. And so to see the data today that shows the gains that we have for those subgroups, that makes me incredibly proud. And it makes me wonder how we sort of transplant or sort of transfer the methodologies and the work that teachers are doing with kids to really support them to actually just spread across all of our students. And so I hope that that's what you're thinking about. And I hope you're incredibly proud of those numbers because they track far away from what we know to be national trends.
Thank you. Thank you. And I get emotional with that, right? But I think it just speaks to what we're saying, the West Orange way, right? And so then by the time they get to the high school, we're seeing that once they're in our educational system for prolonged periods of time, then we can get them back on track, right? Or we can get them excelling. And so then for all of the areas in which we need to grow, this is really strong.
It really speaks to belonging
Yeah.
and the way kids feel inside
Yeah.
classrooms.
Yes, absolutely.
So this, there's nothing to compare this to historically, of course.
Well, we have last year, so you saw last
That-
year
yeah, that's
compared to
it.
this year. We did show 2023, even though it wasn't a requirement, where we were down at the 40th percentile, right? And so then to jump into the 88th percentile, wow, that's good. And for our economically disadvantaged to be that high is also good. And then for us to know who our subgroup students are that sit in that 44% is also of note. We'll work with all of our students, though. Our goal is to have all of them proficient, right? And then the last piece is, I think it's okay that there is an alternate way that students can demonstrate proficiency and not just one test, one day, and this sitting. And I think it's okay that we're given that opportunity. That's not always been the case for our state. And so then to say students can demonstrate it here, or they can demonstrate it here, or they can demonstrate it here, I think that speaks to us growing as a state.
Like to add something, that O'Brien basically explained it. Congratulate the teachers and your staff for the kind of work that you are doing. I can see the improvement that it happened from 23 to 24. And I see, it's a really great improvement, especially in the Hispanic population, in the African-American population as well. For sure, I know that it's a lot of work. I basically understand because it's working in the school system. I understand the difference between when the students come from some other country with no education, they don't know anything about algebra. And when they come here, you can see the kind of work that basically you are doing. I congratulate you and Mr. Moore, because, he's the one who's right on top, checking everything, and the teachers and you as the curriculum superintendent. And once again, congratulations, you are doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. And yes, thank you to all of our high school teachers and to our principal, Mr. Guerrero, and all of our staff there. They're really committed to our students, and we're seeing that in their outcomes. So thanks to the high school staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez.
Welcome.
My colleague, Mr. Stevenson, is quite long-winded, so I think I'll try to recap what he said in a few words. It sounds like it's good that we're doing better than the state. It's good that we're improving. and we have some areas to continue to improve, but we're on the right track.
Yes.
So I appreciate all that and the comments that my board members have made. To Mr. Ivker's question, I would also be interested in that disaggregation of the data, particularly of the students who did not pass the first sitting of the math, what portion of them were ultimately exempt due to an IEP, and what portion of them are multilingual learners that are further down on that access test that we talked about today that are, still becoming accustomed to learning English and at a disadvantage for that reason. And then to the pre-K, as my colleague, Mr. Stevenson said, thank you for your hard work, both of you. It's an amazing thing for this community and for the students to have all of these students in pre-K. Look forward to a few years from now when every student in our community can be there. But this is a process. We can't just roll that out overnight. We've had some bumps in the road, but it's good to hear that this year it is going very smoothly. So very pleased with that update. And again, thank you both for that work.
Thank you. And thank you for your support.
President Rock, I just want to say, in the interest of time, I threw away my prepared remarks. And
So that was the short version.
that was the short version.
Well, I appreciate that very much,
Oh, thank
Mr.
you, sir.
Stevenson. Did we have any other committee reports or comments from the board? Okay. In that case, I will move on to my board president's report. Just two quick things I wanted to note today. One, I wanted to take a moment to recognize one of our longstanding staff members here in West Orange. In my day job, I was sifting through some data from the State Department of Education, particularly looking at years of service among people that work in public schools in New Jersey. And I was curious to see what the biggest number was. Like how long has someone been actively working in a school? And to my surprise, our Miss Marie DeMeo from Washington Elementary is tied for the longest serving educator in New Jersey. She started at Washington Elementary back on September 1st of 1962. There is one other teacher in New Jersey who works in Bergenfield who also started in September of 1962. So it's amazing that both of them are still here serving Bergenfield's kids and our kids here in West Orange. Ms. DeMeo cannot be here tonight, but at our September meeting, we will formally recognize her with a certificate. Just wanted to take a minute to mention that. As the summer closes, she'll be back to school for the 63rd time. So that is an impressive achievement. The other thing I would note is that last weekend, I had the opportunity to attend another Eagle Court of Honor for one of our students in West Orange. Babacar Halsey earned his Eagle Award from Troop 6. When I became president of the board, I did not expect attending Eagle Courts of Honor to be high on my list of duties, but I think this is now the 5th one that I've attended in 2 years. And it's amazing what our Troop 2 and Troop 6 do here with our young people in West Orange. Congratulations to Babacar and to all the Scouts that achieve and aspire to be Eagle Scouts. And that concludes my report. Other than to say good luck to everyone on the back to school. Summer's been great. Unfortunately, it's over and now the work begins. So thank you all, and we'll make it through just 10 months. We'll be back to summer. Next up, we will have questions from the public on agenda items only. Any community member who would like to make comments or ask questions, please come to the podium at this time. Please state your name and home address for the record, then begin your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public here in the audience tonight who wish to make a public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our resolutions. May I have a motion to approve the personnel items A1 through A8?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Ivker. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. I want to congratulate the following retirees. Elmer Camillo, a custodian at Central Office for his 24 years of service. Lirmanda da Silva, a part-time bus driver in transportation for his 8.5 years of service. And Michael Facciano, a night shift custodian at Central Office for his 33.5 years of service. Thank you all for your service to West Orange and to our students and our community, and welcome to the club where every day is Saturday and where the summer never ends. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Ivker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Vera,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, may I have a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction items B1 through B4?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you, Vice President. Is there any discussion? No. Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Ifker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Vera,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next, may I have a motion to approve the finance items, C, special services items A 1 through 4, and B, business office items B 1 through 23.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ifker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Ifker.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Vera,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and finally, may I have a motion to approve reports item D1?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Ifker.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Vera,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to all my board colleagues for that work. Next up, we have petitions and hearings of citizens for any agenda or non-agenda item that you may wish to discuss. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please approach the podium at this time and state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none. Thank you all very much. Our next board meeting will be held at 6:30 p.m. on September 16th, 2024. This meeting will be held in the West Orange High School Library Media Center. We will not be going back into executive session after the close of this meeting. There will be no further business discussed and no additional action will be taken. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. All in favor? All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Our meeting is now adjourned. We wish you a good night.